Welcome to this video lecture of Live Text Access, training for real-time interlingual subtitlers. My name is Julia Borchert. This is Unit 4, Entrepreneurship and Service Competence. Element 1, Management and Interpersonal Skills. This lecture is about basics of task planning. The materials are created by SAPTI Access and ZDF Digital. This is the learning outcome. Plan job-related tasks by considering other dependencies such as schedule, costs, human and physical resources, and related risks. First of all, a short summary of project management in general. This pyramid shows what project management has to consider. The scope at the top of the pyramid means the extent of a work. Features and functionalities relate to the goal of a project, whereby the goal plays here a subordinate role. The scope is more important. Then we have the factor time, which includes schedule and deadlines of a project. And of course, the costs with resources and budget. All components have an equal influence on the quality of a project, and they all need to be considered. These are the key elements of a project. It's limited by budget, schedule, and resources. The project needs to be developed to resolve a clear goal, a milestone, or a set of milestones. Usually the whole project is customer focused. Internal projects view internal players as target audience. A project is the opposite of a process. It is unique and goes beyond day-to-day operations to focus on a new task or objective. That means a project needs to work towards something, and a process has no clearly defined goal. Now I go a little more into detail. These are the different stages of a project and its management. The first stage is the initiation. Here, the project's objective or goal needs to be identified. What is to be achieved is the question. You have to get the approval of the customer for the presented deliverables and the strategy. Then the question of the feasibility needs to be asked. Is the project actionable? Does it make sense? And is it worth it? The goal should match with the respective company target. And finally, a team with the necessary skills need to be selected. The next stage is the planning. You have to identify possible job-related risks, estimate costs, and create a project budget. The project scope must be determined with tasks and requirements. Also, the elaboration of a schedule is important. To create a communication plan for the team and the customer is also very helpful. For example, with planning meetings and feedback talks with the client. The third stage is the execution. The status of the project must be controlled. Deadlines and milestones keep the team and the objective on track. Sometimes small milestones are better to control. Check the performance. Have the milestones been reached? Identify roadblocks as well as the efficiency of processes. Then the closing stage follows. Make sure the quality standard meets the requirements. Present the deliverables to the client. Hand over and assure the results. The project is now formally completed. The last stage of project management is the evaluation. Here you have to take a look at the lessons learned, what went well, and what needs to be improved. Get feedback from your team and your client, and use this feedback and lessons learned for future projects. Finally, a few words about the costs. What kind of costs do you need to consider? First of all, of course, the personal costs need to be included. Important here is what kind of personnel with what kind of skill set is needed. Then we have the material costs and costs for needed hard or software. External costs may also arise, for example, when third-party services are needed for the project. And the extra costs for traveling, approach, and accommodation. Furthermore, costs for marketing, materials, rent, and so on. It's always important to have all these costs in mind. Only this way it's possible in a project to calculate right and to make profit. Enough about the general theory. Let's have a look at the specific job-related factors of project management. There is a difference to be made between remote jobs in an office or remotely at home and jobs which are tied to one location, for example, at conferences or at the parliament. Let's have a look at the different jobs. Speech to text on location, for example, for deaf or hard of hearing users, where you work with the audience or service user right next to you. This can be in many settings, like at a conference, at the doctor's, in school, at work, and so on. But it's also possible to make speech to text for these situations remotely, especially in this COVID time is necessary. Then you only get the video and audio, or sometimes only the audio. And the text is sent through internet on a mobile device of the user. TV subtitling. This is also possible through both ways. TV subtitling at the TV station is in the most countries the more common way. There you have the resources quite closely available and you are connected directly with the transmission line of the channel. But it's also possible to make TV subtitling live remotely from home or another office. Of course, a good internet connection is needed. Now we will have a look at how to plan all these different kinds of speech-to-text jobs. Thus, how to apply project management in practice. First of all, how to plan the schedule. You need to know the exact date and time of a show or an event and need to make sure that there is no collision with other jobs. The preparation time also needs to be part of the schedule. For example, the time needed to get familiar with the content and to build up technical requirements. Approach and building up the technique must also be included. It's very helpful to know about the characteristics of the location. Where exactly in the room is the working space and what about the surrounding? When it's not possible to get these information beforehand, you need to plan extra time for visiting. By including time to the schedule for tracking technique, the following must be observed. On a job tied to one location, you have to check beforehand which technique already exists at location and what is necessary to bring with you. Plan time to set up and install your technique. For the work at the TV station, here you need to focus especially on the transmission lines. Check accurate if everything is working beforehand. Going further, the duration of the show or the event must be planned and also a possible unscheduled extension. When elaborating the schedule, have in mind if it's a single order or a recurring order. For follow-up orders, the schedule could probably change. What kind of costs do you need to consider? Of course, personal costs, so the hourly rate of the subtitler or the subtitlers when working with a team. Costs for technique, hard and software, rent, marketing, materials, and so on. The revenue or payment of the job must be included in the calculation for sure. Here it's important if it's agreed to get an all-inclusive price or maybe a price per minute. For the work at television, for example, a price per minute is common. Now more about the human and physical resources, which are very important for the duty scheduling. You need to consider how many speech-to-text interpreters are necessary for a job and how long the shift will be. Maximum working hours, decreasing concentration, and big breaks must be scheduled. When you need more people, the availability of the staff must be checked beforehand. Also, the needed knowledge of the staff. For example, when the job is at a physician's conference, it's good to have people with medicine knowledge. And also very important for the planning is the time and intensity of the necessary preparation. The risks. Which risks need to be considered? First of all, the technical problems. Especially at remote jobs, problems with the transmission line, the software, or a loss of connection can appear. When a topic is very specific and complicated, content issues can cause difficulties. Also, when a speaker is talking very fast, cryptic, indistinct, has got a strong accent, or is not able to speak the language well. Like in every other job, staff may fail, for example, due to illness and you don't have a replacement. Another risk is that in the end, the quality is not sufficient and therefore the client is not happy. That could mean that there won't be a follow-up order or even disputes regarding the payment. And of course, the cost-benefit calculation can be incorrect and does not add up in the end. Now, all important points in a short summary. Scope, costs, and time have an equal influence on the quality of a project, and all elements need to be considered in project management. A project is always limited by budget, schedule, and resources. The project needs to be developed to resolve a clear goal, a milestone, or a set of milestones. Schedule, costs, human and physical resources differ in each project and project management for every job. The offer needs to be adapted to the specific properties and requirements. Exercises. The exercises for this video lecture are in the trainer's guide and at the PowerPoint file.
LTA Live Text Access, Universitat Autónoma de Barcelona, SDI, Internationale Hochschule, Scuola Superiore per Mediatori Linguistici, ZDF Digital, European Federation of Hard of Hearing People FHO, Velotype, SUBT Access, European Certification and Qualification Association ECQA. Co-funded by the Erasmus Plus program of the European Union. Erasmus Plus project 2018-1-DE01-KA203-004218. The information and views set on this presentation are those of the authors and do not necessarily reflect the official opinion of the European Union. Neither the European Union institutions and bodies, nor any person acting on their behalf, may be held responsible for the use which may be made of the information contained here.